Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that is absolutely fundamental, but honestly, utterly magical. You know, a lot of people think of biochemistry as this dry, rigid science, just heavy textbooks and sterile labs. But I want us to totally reframe that today. Think of biochemistry as the ultimate cosmic cookbook. It is literally the language of life. We're going to look at how completely lifeless, inanimate elements miraculously combine, interact, and organize to create the breathing, moving, living machinery that is, well, you and me.
So, here's our recipe card for today's journey. We'll start with the birth of biochemistry, then look at the ingredients of life, dive into the ultimate solvent, and finish up with the delicate balance. We're zooming all the way from the macro history of human discovery right down to the microchemistry of molecular interactions.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the birth of biochemistry.
Now, what's totally wild to me is just how remarkably recent our understanding of this whole cosmic cookbook actually is. The speed of discovery in the 20th century was just explosive. Get this, it wasn't until 1903 that a German chemist named Carl Neuberg even coined the term biochemistry, barely over a century ago. From there, the dominoes just fell. In 1937, Hans Adolf Krebs described the citric acid cycle, a massive leap for understanding metabolism. And here's a crazy fact. Up until the mid-20th century, scientists actually thought proteins were the hereditary factors of life. But then, boom, 1952, Hershey and Chase proved that DNA is our actual genetic material. Literally, 1 year later, 1953, Watson and Crick described the famous double helix structure of DNA, finally showing us exactly how genetic information is stored. It was an absolute overnight revolution in our understanding of biology.
Which leads us right into section 2, the ingredients of life. What are we actually made of?
So when we strip it all back, what are we structurally made of? It presents this really incredible fundamental paradox. On their own, the elements making up our bodies are completely 100% lifeless. If you isolate them, they have the exact same physical and chemical properties as lifeless, inorganic dirt or gas. Yet, somehow, through these incredibly precise systemic interactions, these non-living inorganic elements arrange themselves to form incredibly complex biomolecules. They transition from non-living to living, and it's this precise interaction that is entirely responsible for maintaining life inside a cell. It's basically magic, but it's science.
Seriously, just take a second right now and look at your own hand, the skin, the muscle, the bone. You are looking at a very, very specific recipe. By elemental composition, you are 65% oxygen, 18% carbon, 9.5% hydrogen, and 3.2% nitrogen. Throw in a tiny fraction of other elements like calcium and phosphorus, and those are literally the precursor ingredients for a normal human being. And the wild part? Whether it's a tiny microorganism, a giant oak tree, or a human, the basic composition, these exact same precursor elements, remains largely the same. It's just the arrangement that changes. And this brilliantly illustrates how those few basic elements actually assemble together within the human body. They don't just float around randomly, right? Those precursor elements synthesize to form organic compounds. They literally build the carbohydrates that give us energy, the proteins that do all the heavy lifting in our cells, and the lipids that make up our cellular membranes. The shape and size of these biomolecules might be completely different, but those foundational inorganic ingredients at the bottom of it all are always exactly the same.
All right, moving on to section 3, the ultimate solvent. Because if we have the ingredients, we definitely need the broth.
And water is entirely unique. Its ability to actually support life stems directly from some very specific physicochemical properties, which are all driven by weak, non-covalent interactions like hydrogen bonds. First, it has a super high heat of vaporization, meaning it takes a ton of energy to overcome the attractive forces between its molecules. It also has a high dielectric constant. Think of that like microscopic magnets pulling things apart, making water an unbelievably effective solvent for dissolving polar molecules like sugars and charged molecules like amino acids. Plus, water has a high specific heat, which is what helps organisms withstand crazy temperature fluctuations in their environment without just freezing or boiling instantly.
Let's look at a real-world application of that high heat of vaporization. When your body heat rises, say during a really brutal summer workout, you sweat. Now, because water requires a massive amount of energy to vaporize, the evaporation of that sweat literally pulls the excess heat right away from your body, allowing you to cool down. It's a brilliant, built-in biological air conditioning system, and it is made possible entirely by the physical properties of water molecule.
And here is another everyday miracle of water.
Unlike most substances out there that gets denser and denser as they freeze, water actually hits its maximum density at 4 degrees Celsius. So when it freezes into ice, it becomes less dense than the liquid water beneath it. This is exactly why ice floats. Think about why that matters for a second. If ice sank, ponds and lakes would freeze solid from the bottom up, destroying literally all aquatic life. But instead, the floating ice acts as this perfect insulating layer on the surface, and life just peacefully continues in the liquid water underneath through the freezing winters. Absolutely genius.
Okay, let's head into our final section, the delicate balance of pH and buffers.
So we've got the ingredients and we've got the water. But what prevents our highly sensitive biological recipe from just spoiling? Well, it all comes down to the delicate balance of pH. Introduced way back in 1909, the formal definition of pH is the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but basically, this mathematical expression just measures the ionization products of water to tell us exactly how acidic or basic a specific system is.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that the specific concentration of those hydrogen ions directly dictates the pH value of any biological solution. It's a very direct mathematical relationship. The higher the concentration of hydrogen ions you have, the lower the pH goes, which makes the solution more acidic.
Which brings us right to the magic number 7.0. At exactly 25 degrees Celsius, pure water contains completely equal amounts of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions. Because they balance each other out perfectly, pure water sits exactly at a neutral pH of 7.0. That right there is the baseline from which all our biological systems operate.
But let's be real, biological systems are messy. Our metabolic reactions are constantly churning out acids and bases. So what happens if that balance tips? Well, if your cell's pH shifts too far, life literally ceases. No pressure, right? But that's exactly where buffers come to the rescue. Think of a buffer as a biological shock absorber. It's an aqueous solution, usually made of a weak acid and its conjugate base, that actively resists changes in pH. So if invading hydrogen ions, an acid, get added to the system, the buffer's base neutralizes them. If hydroxide ions, a base, are added, the buffer's acid steps in to neutralize them. The pH remains unchanged and the organism survives to see another day.
To make this super concrete, we just have to look inside your own body right now. Biological buffers are absolutely essential, and one of the most critical ones is the bicarbonate buffer system. This specific mixture works tirelessly in the background of your circulatory system to keep your human blood perfectly stable, preventing it from becoming dangerously acidic or alkaline. It is a constant, microscopic balancing act happening every single second you are alive.
So we've journeyed from the incredible historical discovery of biochemistry all the way to the elemental makeup of our bodies, the life-giving properties of water, and those heroic protective shock absorbers we call pH buffers. And I want to leave you with a really profound thought to end on. If we are entirely constructed from the exact same lifeless, inorganic elements as the dirt beneath our feet, what truly separates the non-living from the living? Is it just the arrangement? Is it the interactions? It's a question that keeps scientists endlessly searching, and honestly, it's what makes the study of biochemistry so absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep wondering.